It's a new year, and with the new year comes a bunch of people promoting toxic New Year's resolutions, and a lot of these are centered around weight loss and toxic hustle culture, diet culture. A lot of the times New Year's resolutions fail because they're not actually sustainable, achievable goals. Often they're very extreme and a lot different than things that are currently a part of our routine. So for example, if I'm not working out at all and I suddenly decide to work out 5 days a week, that's going to be a bit extreme and you're going to get really burnt out really quick. That actually leads me to my first tip, which is to focus on stress reduction. Stress is the #1 precursor for all disease. It's something that is going to either exacerbate or cause an issue. Many of the top diseases and issues are really fueled by stress. So obviously it's impossible to eliminate all stress. A lot of people in attempts to eliminate stress end up eliminating the situations that cause them stress rather than working on their stress response and ways to cope with that stress. You cannot avoid every situation that causes you stress, and everybody has different stress thresholds and what they're able to cope with at the moment depending on their life circumstances or their physical health or mental health. There's a lot of different factors into stress. Sometimes you're just in this constant state of stress. That is like the #1 thing that I can recommend working on. There are tons of resources on this, and I actually have a few, and I will be developing more on my Instagram, which I'll link in the description if you want to follow me there. I post a lot of pro-metabolic, anti-diet culture, anti-hustle culture, slow living stuff. That's somewhere where I make a lot of informative posts, slides, infographics. Stress reduction and regulating the nervous system. Before you change your diet, before you go and work out every single day and add to your stress, I want you to work on reducing your stress. I'm not talking about trying to meditate for 10 minutes every day. I have developed regimens of meditating, but I stopped as soon as it felt like a chore. I started to force myself to meditate instead of doing things that I enjoyed doing, like reading or watching a show or other things that brought me relaxation. And at that point, I noticed that it was getting a little bit unhealthy. Not that I won't ever meditate again, but for right now, it's more of a priority for me to start bringing those things back into my life that I've cut out because of hustle culture than it is for me to force myself to meditate, to do yoga, to exercise, to do all these things that I'm told are going to reduce stress that actually stress me out. I'm not going to get into all of the different ways that you can stress reduce in this video, but I will gladly make another video solely focused on the nervous system and stress reduction if you guys would like. There are so many books and even just free Instagram resources that will talk about the nervous system and learning how to regulate it. The next thing that I'm going to recommend is actually around diet, and that is addition, not subtraction. Focusing more on adding foods in rather than taking foods out is a non-restrictive approach to changing your diet little by little. Of course, if you have a dietary restriction that you have to follow, I'm not telling you to override that. That's of course something that is at the discretion of you and your doctor. But if you're just trying to make changes, I would really avoid restricting and trying to eliminate things. This leads me into my next tip, which is to just educate yourself as much as you can. So even watching videos like this is a great stepping stone to learning more about your body and your health. The more that you kind of dig and learn about health, you just start connecting the dots more and more on different things. I have tons of health books. There's recipe books in here, and I'm in year 2 of a program that's going to earn me the holistic nutritionist designation. So that's what that book is for. You can find stuff like this at thrift stores or at the library, even. Tons of free resources out there. The other thing, depending on your accessibility, is to work with someone one-on-one. I think that if you're the type of person that needs accountability, that would be a great plan, but again, that's something that is probably going to cost money, so it does depend on your accessibility. The other thing that you could do is take a course. It doesn't have to be a college course. There's tons of nutrition courses for personal interest. I want you to just keep that word in mind when you're trying to take care of yourself and trying to improve your diet. Nourishment. Just think of that word and what that means to you. It sounds so silly to just think of one word, but truly that is something that a lot of our health conversations are missing out on. Just nourish yourself. Not even in just a food sense, but do the things that bring you nourishment. Eat the things that bring you nourishment. And nourishment does not necessarily mean full. It's more of what is going to actually feed your cells. What are your cells going to use to rebuild themselves? The next thing is improving digestion. You are not only what you eat, but you are what you can do with what you eat. So just because we're eating something doesn't mean that our body is utilizing it. And that also depends on like our current state of health and our nervous system. So our nervous system actually plays a huge role in digestion. You've got your rest and digest nervous system, which is your parasympathetic nervous system. And you've got your fight or flight, which is your sympathetic nervous system. When you're in your fight or flight, which a lot of us are when we eat, we cannot digest and assimilate our food. When we're in rest and digest, of course we are resting and digesting. So we're actually able to absorb the nutrients and utilize the things that are in our food. Some ways to do that would be eating mindfully, not distracted. A lot of us like to eat in front of our TVs, but if we're sitting down and having a meal with like a partner or family members, or even just by ourselves and just really tasting the meal and appreciating it and not having any outside distractions, that's really going to help you be in a relaxed state. The other thing is chewing fully, which sounds really funny, but if you have any food going through your system that's not chewed, you don't have teeth in your stomach. So that's going to be a lot harder to digest and absorb. Chew more than you think you need to. That is one of the huge ways that we can impact our overall health, is simply by improving digestion and learning about that in particular. No matter what we're eating, if we improve our digestion, we are going to be absorbing more nutrients. I'd also recommend focusing on blood sugar balance. This has a lot to do with meal frequency, so eating smaller meals more often. Make sure you're eating breakfast and then you're eating every 3 to 4 hours after that. That's going to keep your blood sugar relatively stable, because if we're going long spans of time without eating, then our blood sugar is going to plummet, and then our liver is going to be working overtime to provide us with that sugar, because sugar is what we run on. Sugar is our source of energy. You don't want to get to the point where you're really, really hungry. If you're scarfing your food down because you haven't eaten in so long, then your blood sugar is going to be ridiculously low, and then it's going to spike after you eat, and that will lead you to be more stressed out, throwing your blood sugar into another frenzy, and it's just this endless cycle. And you're not going to be chewing your food properly, meaning your digestion is also inhibited. So it all kind of ties together, and that's why I'm giving you this list of things. Take your time with them, research them all individually, and eventually you'll get to the point with your knowledge where it's not so overwhelming and you can start applying these things together, and it will start making sense how they connect. The other thing that you can do is making sure that you eat adequate protein with every meal. Your protein intake is going to vary based on your stature, which is again something that you probably will want to find a resource on. You will have a much steadier blood sugar if you eat protein with every meal. So to sum that up, eating every 3 to 4 hours, eating breakfast, and having protein with every meal. The next thing is to try recipes and or specific foods that are slightly out of your comfort zone, one at a time. And if you have to, add it into a food that you already eat. For example, if you love Alfredo and you're trying to try a new veggie that you've never had or you've never developed a taste for, start finding new ways to cook that veggie and start incorporating it in your Alfredo or on the side of your Alfredo. That way you have something kind of with it that makes you comfortable, and you're not forcing yourself to try all these new foods that just leave you feeling unfulfilled and like you have nothing familiar, because that can be really scary and intimidating. If you aren't in a regular regimen of making meals, that's where you start. No matter what it is, start making meals at home. A lot of our issue around health is that like a lot of people don't know how to cook, and so that's where you start with your diet, is learning how to cook. If you are already making meals regularly and you want to find ways to make them healthier, this is where I'd implement that earlier tip, which would be adding and not subtracting. So making a meal that you would make normally and adding something in, trying something next time. That'll give you a sense of familiarity, and it will also give you something new to try. And you can try to make things in different ways. You can try to create a smaller amount of it in case you don't like it, and you can also expose yourself to it over a course of several days, because sometimes it does just take time to develop a taste bud for something. So when we talk about acquired tastes, often those come from just eating it over and over again. Find your fun exercise routine. That way it doesn't feel like a chore, it doesn't feel like something that you have to do, but more of just like a fun hobby. Personally, I was never really an active person, and as a kid I wasn't really in any sports or anything, and I developed an interest in dance when I was 11, and that was my first physical activity. So I started dancing, and that was fun, and that was the only form of really activity that I did for a long time. And then I did tennis in high school, but other than that, I never went to the gym. I never worked out. I hated working out just to work out. And then I started doing aerial. It doesn't really feel like working out to me. I hope you found those tips helpful. If you want to see more videos like this, definitely give this video a like and subscribe. And of course, you can follow me on Instagram as well for more of that health information, infographics, and stuff like that.